What's up, addicts? In this video, we are going to answer the question, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire the 101 for rookie drafts, and what can we draw back on from Andy Reid's history with running backs to prove that point? Now, before we get started, I need to preface this by saying that prior to the NFL draft, my view of Helaire was very low. I saw a short, not incredibly fast running back that was a product of an incredible system in college there with LSU in that season where you couldn't help but produce points. And yes, he was one of the better pass and route runners and pass catchers of the running backs coming out of this class. I think you debate between him and DeAndre Swift who's the better pass catcher, but overall, saw him as a system running back, someone that needed a good system to be highly productive. So prior to the NFL draft, I had him ranked clearly at my number 5, a tier break below the 4 guys before him. So bear that in mind. And also bear in mind the fact that before we get into any of this, not only has Andy Reid never taken a running back in the first round, there was also this conversation that took place.
Hey, listen, we're fired up for you, man. Very excited.
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir. I can't wait.
We asked Pat Mahomes, who do you want? And he picked you. Huh? Great set.
Man, I'm ready to
You better
work.
be ready to go, man.
I'm ready to work, coach. You know that.
You're always ready.
Clyde, I told Clark and Coach Reid today that at about 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I said Clyde was going to be our pick because Coach and I were thinking your way. And then when we texted Pat and I asked Pat, I said, give me a name. I said, don't think about it. He said, Clyde. I said, we're good. We're good. So we're excited, man.
Yes, sir.
So, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's dig into the data and let's talk about this. So, what I've compiled here, going back to Andy Reid's first year coaching back in 1999, we're looking at his running back 1, and I even compiled data for running back 2 and 3 here, just to see, because I wanted to see, like, all right, some people are saying that, well, even if Clyde got drafted in the first round, they're still going to use him and Damian Williams. First of all, I think we need to remember that Damian Williams isn't good. I say that with as kind as I can possibly be. Damian Williams is not a good football player in the NFL. He didn't do anything in Miami. Obviously, it was a team that wasn't nearly as strong as Kansas City, and finally came here, and the only reason that he even had a chance to start doing anything in Kansas City is because Kareem Hunt got himself suspended from the league, and Damian Williams took over at the end of the 2018 season, came on in 2019. The Chiefs did not address the running back spot heavily, but they still did enough they went after LaShawn McCoy, who is completely washed at this point in his career, and they also drafted Darwin Thompson, who we now know is most likely not going to make any real headway into this league. So last year was a bit of a conundrum, but overall, yes, Damian Williams looked good in the Super Bowl, but the argument I'm going to make now is any decent running back is going to look good on the Kansas City Chiefs. I want to make this chart just as a visual representation. I'm going to take my camera off here real quick because it gets in the way. I wanted to make this chart just as a visual representation of what this actually means for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Let me see if I can bring this up a little bit. Sorry, guys. There we go. All right. So what you're seeing here, the blue dots are the finishing spot of the running back 1 in Andy Reid's system, whereas the red dots are the running back 2. So basically we're using this as a example to prove that there isn't any history to draw back from to bring the corollary that says Andy Reid is going to share carries and targets with Damian Williams because Damian Williams is a great running back and they're going to be a committee. There's just no data, no evidence to prove that that's the case. And again, remember, guys, I went into this fully hoping that the Chiefs would take DeAndre Swift. I was hoping that Clyde Edwards-Helaire would fall to some place I didn't have to think about him anymore, because I realized that there's risk in taking a running back that doesn't really fit the build or the profile of what you would want in a productive running back in the NFL. But in PPR leagues, he went to the absolute best spot possible. Now, looking at this chart again, I mapped it out here, and obviously I flipped it to be negative numbers just that way you could see the rising here. So 1999 had Deuce Staley, and ended up finishing as the 10th best running back in PPR points. Now in 2000, Deuce Staley actually was out for 11 games. He only played 5 games that season. So got to take that outlier out. Anytime you have a major injury to your running back, it doesn't really count for much. In 2011, he finished 15th, but he only played 10 games, so he also missed 6 games in this year. So Deuce Staley, definitely not on the same caliber as some of the next guys we're going to talk about. Now, enter 2003. This is the year, in 2002, this is the year that the Eagles drafted Brian Westbrook with a 3rd round pick. So we see a carry split between Deuce Staley and Westbrook, and actually that carries over for 2 years. So this is one corollary that you can bring in and say, well, here's where they were splitting carries somewhat, is when Brian Westbrook and Deuce Staley came into play. Now, Deuce Staley was a good running back, and if there was a running back of Deuce Staley's caliber on the Chiefs team, I might be a little bit more inclined to believe that. But again, making the argument again, Damien Williams is not Deuce Staley, he's not Brian Westbrook, and they drafted Brian Westbrook with a 3rd round pick. I know it's stupid, but coaches and owners are enamored by the place that they take picks. And think about it, you probably do it in your fantasy leagues too. When you draft a guy in the 1st round, if he does poorly for a week or two, you're most likely going to convince yourself, tell yourself a story that he's going to turn things around. Well, NFL owners and coaches do the same thing too. Very rarely can you truly remain as Bayesian as you need to the point that you will adapt the moment that you see something that is out of line. That's why the earlier you get picked, the more draft capital you have, the more chances you're going to get when you make mistakes. So we're talking about Brian Westbrook, who is a fantastic running back. He's going down as one of the better running backs that we've seen, especially from a fantasy perspective. And the first 2 years, he was splitting time with Deuce Staley, who was also a very good running back from a fantasy perspective. And they drafted him with a 3rd round pick. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was drafted with a 1st round pick. So they're not going to have nearly the same tendency to be like, well, he's a 3rd round pick, we don't give him the range yet. No, they are going to give him the keys to the car. They made him the face of their franchise, drafting him with the 1st overall pick. Well, not the face over Patrick Mahomes. You get my point. You take a player in the 1st round, you're not going to wait it out. You're going to throw them into that system. And as we've already seen in the video, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid are fully on board with launching this guy into the system. You got Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, creating Mecole Hardman, creating tons of space deep downfield. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be open on every freaking play. He's going to get like 70, 80 receptions. Most likely, even in his rookie year, he could be coming close to that number. It's going to be insane. And if you play in a PPR league, that alone is what's going to give him his value. But anyway, let's just keep going. I want to keep just pounding this hammer home. So finally get to 2004. Westbrook finishes as the 7th best running back, and that's with him missing 3 games. 2005, he missed 5 games, and he still finished as a 10th overall running back. In 2006 is finally when he gets to play a full season. He finishes as RB4, and then in 2007, he is the number 1 overall running back. 2008 dips a little bit down to ranked number 8, and then finally we get to 2009. Westbrook sees a massive dip in his production. He kind of goes over the cliff, as we see with a lot of running backs after about 5 years. And then LaShawn McCoy enters into the fold. So there's a carry split again between LaShawn McCoy and Brian Westbrook, both 3rd round running backs. So Brian Westbrook, one of the best running backs the Eagles have ever seen. LaShawn McCoy comes on as a rookie. They split carries. Okay, we have the case again. 2 cases now. New running back coming on, Deuce Staley and Brian Westbrook. And then here again, LaShawn McCoy and Brian Westbrook. and they split carries in the first year. But to make this corollary, you're going to have to convince me that you think that Damian Williams is Brian Westbrook. I'm just not going to take that. So let's keep going. So then we have 2010, 2011, LaShawn McCoy finishes as the number 2 running back-to-back years in fantasy, dominating in 2010 and 2011. And then 2012, he misses a quarter of the season, misses 4 games, and finishes as running back 17. This is also the year that Philadelphia decides to move on from Andy Reid, and he moves over to Kansas City. Well, he jumps into Kansas City, installs his offense, and what is the very first thing he does? He gives us yet his second number 1 overall running back season with Jamal Charles. Next year, Jamal Charles finishes number 7th overall. And then what happens here in 2015? Well, that's the year that Jamal Charles gets hurt and misses 11 games. So, again, we have 2 outliers here where the running back missed a vast majority of the season. And then we have 2 times where you have 2 high-caliber pickbacks on the same team at the same time. 2016 rolls around, and Jamal Charles has... Actually, I take that back. Sorry, that's not Jamal Charles. So at this point, Jamal Charles, once he got injured this year, he pretty much fell off the cliff. This is actually Spencer Ware. So Spencer Ware, as much as I'm talking crap about Damian Williams, Spencer Ware is worse than Damian Williams, and he still finished as the overall 17th running back. So that's still pretty interesting. Well, then we finally get 2017, the last time that Andy Reid drafted a running back on the Chiefs. And he was a 3rd round pick. So we've got trends now, right? We've got Westbrook, we've got McCoy, we've got Kareem Hunt, 1st round picks. This time, not an established running back on that team that had high draft capital and had multiple years of statistical production. What's the first thing that happens? Kareem Hunt freaking owns this backfield. Is the number 4 running back in fantasy that year. There's none of this going on, but that's because there wasn't a Deuce Staley on the roster. There's none of this going on. That's because there wasn't a Brian Westbrook on the roster. Kareem Hunt comes on and is the best running back on the roster. They don't have Jamal Charles at this point, and he takes over and he is the number 4 running back. Next year, same system we now see with Patrick Mahomes coming into the fray. We see Kareem Hunt is the number 12 ranked running back, but that's because he missed 5 games due to his suspension. He would have very easily finished up here in the top 5 again. And now Kareem Hunt is gone. We have this hodgepodge year in 2019 where they try to make things work on the running back core, Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy and Darwin Thompson and Darrell Williams. Like, it's just kind of gross overall in terms of the talent that they had. And you could tell that they never really wanted to give the backfield to Damian Williams. He had a few good playoff games. He misses 5 games and finishes as the running back 38 in PPR. And you're going to try to make the argument to me that they're going to give this guy a similar carry split that we saw with Brian Westbrook and LaShawn McCoy? I'm not buying that at all. You don't spend a 1st round pick on a guy when your historical track record shows. I mean, we're looking here. He's had 10 seasons over the course of his coaching career where he had a top 10 running back in PPR points. And that's along with 4 times that he hit in the top 2 and 2 more times to round out 6 times hitting in the top 4, a top 4 running back. I'm excited, guys. Like, again, can't preface it enough. I was not excited about Clyde Edwards-Helaire heading into the draft, but going into Kansas City, you could not name a better landing spot for him to go to. This is an absolute smash play. If you have the 101, I get it. Jonathan Taylor is such a high value prospect. I love Jonathan Taylor. I think that he's going to find a lot of success there in Indianapolis. But Indianapolis does not like to have a workhorse running back that also receives targets. People think that Marlon Mack can't catch. Marlon Mack is actually a really good receiver. He did really well in college. They just don't throw the ball to the running back that gets the majority of carries. That's just the way that Frank Reich is. And that's how it was in Philadelphia when he was the offensive coordinator. So while Jonathan Taylor will most likely get a lot more carries and yardage than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if you're playing in a PPR league, which most people do these days, there's no way that you can make the argument to me that Jonathan Taylor, who's going to get probably like 300 carries and maybe 10 to 15 receptions a year, is going to outproduce a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who may only get 180 to 200 carries, but a lot of those are going to be on the goal line because the Chiefs score gobs and gobs of touchdowns. He's going to get a lot of touchdowns from that. And if he's getting 60, 70, 80 plus targets, and even receptions. I mean, let's look at some of the reception totals that we've seen from the running back one on Andy Reid's team. Deuce Staley, 1999, only 41. Then 2001, even with missing 6 games, still 63 receptions, 51 the next year. We see this is the year that Brian Westbrook took over, so there was a split. 73, 61, 77, 90 receptions in 2007. And we're talking about a guy that they drafted in the 3rd round. 54, 40, 78, 48, 54. So, I mean, like, the last time we saw a below 40 reception season was Brian Westbrook in his rookie year. This is insane. 70 receptions to Jamal Charles in his running back 1 season. 40 the next year. 21, he gets hurt. 33 to Spencer Ware. Spencer Ware sucks. Sorry, I'm being rude because I can't play football. So Spencer Ware compared to me is amazing. But compared to the rest of the NFL, he sucks. Kareem Hunt, 53 receptions in his rookie year. Yes, it went down a little bit in the 2nd year. But again, he missed 5 games. Someone's going to have to convince me otherwise. Because while I think from a pound-for-pound perspective, if you matched up Jonathan Taylor running a 4.39 versus Clyde Edwards-Helaire running a 4.6, you've got a bigger bodied back in Jonathan Taylor. You have 2,000 yards from scrimmage all 3 years in college, breaking records all over the place. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a guy that people thought was going to lose his job heading into the junior season, comes in 55 receptions, 1,400 rushing yards, a couple more 100 receiving yards, and 17 total touchdowns. Just completely rewrites history, completely changes his outlook, and you have guys like Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid going out and saying, all those other guys that are being drafted right now, we want Clyde. Doesn't matter. The production that Jonathan Taylor made, he's going to a system that doesn't like to give the reception workhorse load to a single running back. This is your 101. Love it or hate it, it's 2020. Everything is weird. Everything is broken. 2020 is stupid, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is your 101. Thank you and good night.